Greetings to all. It's a pleasure to have you here once more. We are truly grateful for your presence with us today. Allow us to unveil a delightful new tale. So let us embark on this journey together. My name is Ethan, and today I wish to share a few thoughts on the essence of family, the importance of respect, and the wisdom of knowing when to draw the line. For many years, I have been a source of support for my wife's family, offering them financial assistance. I speak of tending to their rent, unforeseen expenses, provisions, and all that one might require. I chose not to make a fuss. I simply acted on the belief that this is the essence of family. Yet, despite the abundance of assistance, there remained one individual who unmistakably conveyed that I was never genuinely embraced. My beloved mother-in-law. Regardless of my efforts or the quiet support I offered, she never embraced my presence. She scarcely afforded me her patience. At last, the situation reached a turning point following a rather unfortunate misunderstanding. It was amidst one of those passionate disagreements that she candidly expressed her desire for me not to return to their home for any occasion. And truly, those words resonated within me more profoundly than I had anticipated. After all the quiet deeds I had performed over the years, from that moment onward, I resolved to embrace a new path. I had no intention of keeping my distance from their home. I was severing all ties. Financial support shall no longer be provided. No longer will I grace the occasions of birthdays, holidays, or any such gatherings. I had reached my limit, tired of being seen as a mere complication while shouldering their weighty troubles. To be honest, that decision nearly brought my marriage to its knees. It created a considerable strain in the delicate bond one share with my wife. There were moments when I found myself uncertain if we would emerge from the shadows together. Yet, before we delve further into that, I believe it is essential to transport you back to the very moment when this enchanting tale first unfolded. Long before the disputes arose, long before the wealth, long before the shadows of resentment took hold. To truly grasp our present, one must first journey back to the origins of it all. Before the world unraveled as it did, it all began with that enchanting moment when I first encountered Mia's family. Allow me to share a glimpse into Mia's story. She hails from a family that has journeyed from distant lands in search of a brighter future. They share a profound bond, steeped in cherished traditions. They possess quite compelling notions of what success embodies. As I stepped through their threshold, her mother's disappointment was palpable, unmasked and evident in her gaze. She scarcely cast a glance in my direction. And when she did, it felt as though she was seeking to unravel the mystery of my heart's disquiet. Truthfully, it became apparent to me quite swiftly that she was displeased with Mia for bringing me home in the first place. In due course, the reason revealed itself to me. It seems there was another gentleman, one whom her mother had been advocating for. This gentleman was not merely affluent. He was truly wealthy, and he ensured that everyone was aware of it. Lavish presents, ceaseless tokens of affection, whatever your heart desires. He approached Mia's family as if they were a cherished endeavor he longed to conquer. Indeed, he was certainly engaging in a strategy that unfolded over time. In contrast, I may have appeared to them as the least desirable choice they could envision. When I encountered Mia's family, I found myself in the midst of a journey to align my financial aspirations. I held a respectable position, yet I wasn't indulging in extravagance or cruising in a luxurious vehicle. To provide a touch of context about my background, I was not born into wealth, yet I also found myself in a position of comfort. My family enjoyed a life of comfort, yet we were never ones to display our blessings ostentatiously. The essence of it all lies in my independence. I found myself independent, without the support of my parents to cover my expenses, nor did I have the responsibility of sending money back home to assist anyone. I found myself standing tall, navigating the world with grace and independence. When Mia finally unveiled her family to me, we had already woven a tapestry of shared moments for a year and a half. Our connection was truly delightful. Our love for one another was profound, and we had already envisioned a beautiful future side by side. Encountering her family was meant to be one of those cherished milestones. Yet, it seemed as though I was stepping into a job interview, unaware that I was faltering with each passing moment. Amidst all the tension, Mia still chose me. She candidly confessed that her heart had never been swayed by the other man, regardless of the lavish displays of wealth he paraded before her. She expressed her love for me, not for him, and that alone was sufficient for her heart, embracing the sensation of being the most fortunate man alive. Yet, amidst it all, a lingering worry danced in the recesses of my mind. We found ourselves in the same town as her family, and I understood that this proximity would make it impossible to sidestep them should complications arise. I feared that her mother's disapproval would linger, refusing to dissipate into the ether. I feared it could linger above us like a shadowy veil, poised to unveil its tempest when we were least prepared. And within the depths of my heart, I sensed it was merely a question of time before it unfolded. Once Mia and I exchanged our vows, I realized it was time for me to rise to the occasion. Thus, I immersed myself wholeheartedly in my corporate endeavors. I wasn't merely showing up for a paycheck. I found myself immersed in the allure of overtime, embracing additional projects, and graciously accepting every opportunity that beckoned me toward progress. In addition to that, I have embarked on delightful online ventures. It was a delightful blend of freelance endeavors, selling trinkets here and there, and exploring various avenues to earn a touch of extra income. Anything that grants us a touch more space to savor our moments. One might assume that such dedication would garner a measure of respect, yet my mother-in-law remains unmoved. In those formative years, as I sought to establish my place in the world, her demeanor towards me remained unwaveringly steadfast. Each time our paths crossed, I was met with that familiar chill in her gaze, a lingering sensation that I simply did not measure up to the warmth of their family. Despite my relentless efforts and unwavering dedication to crafting a beautiful future for her daughter and our children, she never seemed to embrace me with warmth. What deepened the sorrow was the understanding of the reason behind it all. She held a quiet conviction that Mia might have chosen a wealthier path in marriage. In her thoughts, my existence had deprived their family of the opportunity to welcome a son-in-law who might have indulged them with lavish gifts. I was not that gentleman, at least not in those days. After a few years of perseverance, the tides began to turn, and a brighter financial future emerged. With a few promotions under my belt and my side ventures flourishing, we found ourselves thriving rather than merely existing. We were beginning to embrace a life of greater ease. In that moment, I resolved to take a step that I believed would draw me closer to Mia's family. I began to lend my assistance. In the beginning, it was the little things. I offered Mia some financial support from time to time to assist with her parents' rent when they found themselves in a difficult situation. As my earnings grew, we lovingly established an emergency fund for them, particularly in light of my mother-in-law's diabetes, which often brought unexpected medical expenses to the forefront. At times, Mia would casually mention that their pantry was becoming sparse, and I would gladly send a little something to help replenish it. It was not due to any pleas from others. It was not out of a desire to seek approval. It simply seemed like the most fitting choice to make. Yet, there lies a curious truth. Despite the family's awareness of my significant contributions to their living expenses, my mother-in-law remained blissfully unaware. It felt as though there existed a delicate understanding, a silent pact that lingered in the air, where words remained unuttered. No one would whisper to her, "Darling, it is Ethan who has ensured you have a roof over your head this month." And since she remained unaware, her treatment of me remained constant. At times, I find myself pondering with Mia, don't you believe it's the moment we share the truth with her? Perhaps if she were aware, the course of events might have taken a different turn. Yet, Mia would invariably express the same sentiment. Not at this moment. She possesses a timeless charm. She possesses a discerning taste. Simply embrace the virtue of patience. And in the depths of my affection for my wife, in the faith I held in her wisdom, I chose to remain silent. I continued to give, to help, to be present, even as I was made to feel like a misstep Mia never intended to take. The remainder of the family possessed a distinct essence, though it was not inherently superior. My father-in-law and my siblings-in-law maintained a largely neutral stance. While they did not mistreat me, they also failed to defend my honor. No one ever dared to speak openly in the presence of my mother-in-law. No one ever intervened when she spoke to me with disdain or made me feel like an intruder in her world. It seemed as though they all opted for tranquility rather than embracing the courage to uphold what was just. As time passed, this silence began to weigh on my heart, troubling me nearly as much as her lack of respect. At first, I endeavored to dismiss it, convincing myself that it held no significance, that my actions were for the sake of my beloved wife and children, rather than seeking her validation. Yet, the reality remains that no one relishes the sensation of being unseen, particularly when one is making genuine sacrifices. It transcended the mere matter of wealth. It felt as though, regardless of my efforts, I would remain unseen, unappreciated, and devoid of respect. And that was a challenging truth to embrace. Thanksgiving had perpetually embraced a familiar rhythm. Each year, Mia would gather the children and embark on a journey to her parents' home. A week prior to the cherished Thanksgiving Day, I lingered a while longer to finalize my tasks and tend to some matters at home, before embarking on a drive Thanksgiving morning to join everyone in celebration. Though it lacked perfection, particularly due to the strain with my mother-in-law, I embraced the situation for the sake of Mia's happiness. I longed for our children to cherish those precious family memories. Yet, that year unfolded in a manner most unexpected. Merely a day after Mia graced her parents' home with her presence, she reached out to me. Her voice carried a hint of distress, and she swiftly turned to me, requesting additional funds for an unforeseen circumstance that had arisen. To be candid, it left me feeling quite unsettled. I grew weary of being perceived merely as a vessel for money, rather than as a cherished individual. I gently declined her request. I suggested that they should be more mindful of their expenditures and handle their resources with greater care. I merely expressed it with a sense of tranquility. I pondered that perhaps by establishing a few boundaries, I might inspire a transformation in our circumstances. Before I could complete my explanation, the phone was abruptly snatched from Mia's grasp. In an instant, her mother's voice resonated through the receiver, echoing with urgency. She charged me with attempting to dominate Mia, of weaving a web of influence over their family through the withholding of funds. She expressed that I was lacking in respect, consumed by my own desires, and failing to show gratitude. And then she uttered the words that ultimately shattered something deep within me. Given your apparent disregard for our family, I must kindly ask that you refrain from returning to our home for any reason. I recall cradling the phone against my ear, utterly taken aback by the moment. No words were needed. I understood that to engage in an argument would only deepen the discord, and truthfully, I felt too weary to vie for a place at a table where my presence was evidently unwelcome. Thus, I remained silent. I gently ended the call, allowing the silence that lingered between us to speak volumes. Thanksgiving Day arrived and gracefully passed by. I failed to make my appearance. I found solace at home, savoring a plate of takeout while indulging in the warmth of the kids' beloved holiday movie, all in the quiet of my own company. No one reached out to inquire about my absence. No one made an effort to inquire what of the funds I would typically send each month. I have retained it within my account. I came to the realization that if my presence and support held such little significance for them, perhaps it was time they experienced the world devoid of it. Once I ceased the flow of funds, it wasn't long before the fissures began to reveal themselves. In the early days, my wife's family began to sense the weight of expectation. Their expenses accumulated with an alarming swiftness, surpassing their ability to manage them. The rent has not yet been submitted. The funds for groceries no longer seem to extend as they once did. Urgent matters, once discreetly managed in the shadows, have now emerged as pressing challenges. Initially, I caught whispers of it, delicate remarks from Arya about her mother's anxious moments and her father's burdens weighing heavily upon him. Yet I chose to remain silent. I had reached my conclusion, and I was resolutely committed to it. Arya was not pleased with my silence. She chided me for my perceived pettiness, suggesting that my emotions had obscured my clarity of thought. She remarked that my actions were unkind, particularly in light of her mother's health circumstances. She expressed that it was unjust to impose consequences on the entire family merely due to her mother's words, which were spoken in haste and without true intention. I absorbed her words, yet my responses remained few. In that moment, I understood that no amount of explanation would alter the course of events. For years, I endeavored to embody the essence of the good man. I endeavored to embrace patience. Nothing held significance. I chose to disregard the accusations and continued on my path with grace. Then the call arrived from my esteemed father-in-law. I could sense the discomfort in his voice as he spoke, as if he were swallowing his pride merely to connect with me. He approached it directly. He spoke to me with a certain candor, revealing that my mother-in-law's health was, regrettably, deteriorating. Her diabetes was not receiving the care it deserved, as the burden of expenses for medications and treatments weighed heavily, leaving her reliant on my financial support. He spoke with a gravity that lingers in my mind, his words etched in my memory. She could perish if we fail to provide her with the care she so desperately requires. That resonated in a profound way. My heart has always yearned for compassion, even in the face of unkindness. I could never wish for anyone to endure pain or meet a tragic end. I consented to lend my assistance, but solely for matters pertaining to health. Nothing else is needed. At some point, the truth gracefully revealed itself to my mother-in-law. She discovered the depth of my unwavering support for them throughout all those years. Each rent payment, every carefully set-aside emergency fund, and every grocery trip where it seemed as though the money appeared by some enchanting stroke of luck. It was I. In an instant, a transformation unfolded. The woman who once averted her gaze from mine now endeavored to exude warmth. She conveyed her thoughts through Mia. She once inquired if I would grace them with my presence at a family dinner. In all honesty, it was rather amusing to behold. Yet, by that moment, the hour had slipped away. I found myself indifferent to whether she embraced me or not. The moment had passed, and I found no desire to reconstruct what ought to have blossomed from the very beginning. I maintained a graceful distance, ensuring that both Mia and those around us understood my intentions. I would gladly assist when it concerns her well-being, yet when it comes to matters beyond that, birthdays, celebrations, family gatherings, I find myself withdrawing. I never returned to their abode, and truthfully, I harbor no regrets about it. In the wake of all that has transpired, I often find my thoughts drifting towards the idea of gathering my family and embarking on a journey to a new town, perhaps even a different state, in pursuit of a fresh beginning. I pondered how the tapestry of our lives might shift if we were not entwined so closely, both in body and in heart. It was a matter of safeguarding my tranquility and nurturing the bond of my marriage from the subtle, insidious harm that lingered in the shadows of her family's turmoil. Yet, as one might imagine, Mia was not in agreement with that notion. She was nurtured in the warm embrace of her family. Despite witnessing her mother's treatment towards me and coming to terms with the reality of the sacrifices made for money, she remained torn by the thought of parting ways with them. It is difficult to hold her accountable. For certain souls, the ties of blood weave an intricate tapestry of connection. Yet for me, loyalty transcends mere familial ties. It is a matter of those who remain by your side, who hold you in esteem. And the melancholy reality was I felt a lack of respect. Not by her mother, indeed. Not even, at times, by Mia when she graciously justified their actions. Here we find ourselves poised at a delicate crossroad. My desire to embrace new beginnings. Her desire to remain bound to the very roots that have caused us pain. Reflecting on the journey we've traversed, I find that this entire experience has imparted invaluable lessons upon me. Lessons I long to embrace without the weight of hardship. The initial lesson unfolds before us. Regardless of the depths of your generosity, there are those who may never recognize your worth until it is withdrawn from their grasp. For years, I endeavored to earn respect through the gifts of wealth and kindness, yet it seemed to bear no fruit. The second lesson I embraced is that silence and patience hold their own beauty, yet they can transform into instruments for others to undermine your worth. Anticipating the moment of recognition only allowed them to weave a facade, rendering my presence seemingly insignificant. The third lesson awaits. When your beloved refrains from establishing boundaries with their family, you may find yourself entangled in conflicts that were never meant to be yours to bear. The weight of that pressure nearly shattered the delicate bond of my marriage. At times, embracing the role of the bigger person may inadvertently render you a more prominent target. When you continuously offer kindness while enduring disrespect, others may come to believe it is acceptable to burden you further. Finally, the fifth lesson, perhaps the most profound, reveals that peace holds greater value than pride, yet it may demand sacrifices of relationships you once believed to be unyielding. Pray tell, if you found yourself in my position, how might you have chosen to act differently? Would you have continued to withhold the funds even when faced with matters as grave as health concerns? Would you have set aside your pride and continued to play the part of the peacemaker, all for the sake of family harmony? I find myself quite eager to hear your thoughts, for when one is immersed in the experience, the answers often elude clarity, appearing far simpler from a distance. Thank you for your patience and for lending an ear to my tale. If you found any part of this resonant or meaningful, please feel free to like the video, share it with someone who may benefit from it, and remember to subscribe for more delightful content. I look forward to our next encounter.